Nintendo fans rejoice because we're actually getting a console that is a proper sequel. It's not a Wii to Wii U type of thing. It's actually a sequel. The Switch 2 Direct just finished, and needless to say, my mind was blown. There were some predictions of my own that I actually got right, and there were some that I threw out there that I couldn't believe that they were actually gonna confirm it. I just want to go over the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct and give you my thoughts and opinions on the different things that were shown. So first up on the list was Mario Kart World. Now, I wasn't expecting to be as excited as I now am for this game, but they showed off a ton of different features. We see grinding on rails, we see flying in airplanes, boats, ski slopes. I mean, there was so much more different things to do in the world, but the main thing is the free roam aspect and almost like Forza Horizon type of style of Mario Kart, which I didn't even think was a thing that I wanted, because Forza Horizon is not something that I'm into, but you throw a Mario Kart coat of paint on it and I'm into that. The world looks absolutely huge. It looks very vast, different types of biomes. To top it off, they even introduced like a battle royale version of Mario Kart, which that's so cool to me. The battle royale genre is obviously a genre that is very popular nowadays, but to make it racing, like that's so cool. You can play with friends and you can all free roam together and you can drive around the world and race together. That's what the Switch is all about. I mean, being able to just play with your friends, being able to play with your family, like that's what it's about, y'all. Playing video games together. That's where the fun is. So on day one, you can get your Switch 2 and play Mario Kart World. So then they started talking about the different features of the Switch 2, and they introduced the Joy-Con 2 controllers. And then they go into detail about what that C button does. The C button is the Switch 2 console's dedicated game chat. So you can now have a built-in voice chat in the Switch 2, which is literally a godsend because the Nintendo Online app is absolutely atrocious. Putting your voice chat to a dedicated app on a separate device, like something like your phone, but not everybody is going to have a phone.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Having it built into the console, just like any console that we grew up playing, can only be a good thing. You can actually watch each other's screens while you play. At first I was like, oh, that's a pretty cool concept, but then I saw the demo. Your screen looks fine, but the other 4 people you're playing with, it was like 15 FPS. It was like Pokemon Legends Arceus all over again. But I guess it's something. It's a move in the right direction. So I'm okay with that. The Nintendo Switch console itself actually has a built-in microphone. So wherever the Switch goes, you're always going to have a microphone. I can see this being a problem, having a mic on the console at all times. The DualSense controller for the PS5 has a built-in microphone, and a lot of times you'll be playing, like Call of Duty, and you'll just be hearing somebody's random conversation. A lot of people don't know that the mic is on by default, which is bonkers. So if Nintendo makes it so that the mic is muted by default, that could curb some of the problems. Then they announced the Nintendo Switch 2 camera. Now this to me, I was like, okay, how are they gonna use this? This to me doesn't make any sense. But then they started to show off in-game chat. If you have a Nintendo Switch camera, you can actually put your face in the game. So not only can your friends see your game screen, but they can also see your face. And that just brings a lot more personality and it brings a lot more personal connection to the game. Even later on, they actually showed off some like AR games with Mario Party Jamboree, which is like, that to me is a throwback to like the 3DS when like AR games was the thing. You play Face Raiders, you would play with your amiibo cards. It was sweet. This is when I was like, okay, now I'm awake. It had been a little while. I'm awake now. And I got really excited about this. They announced Game Share. On the Nintendo Switch 2, you can share the game locally from your Switch to another friend's Switch. Now, this right here reminds me of the Nintendo DS. I forget what it was called. Like, I remember in Mario Kart DS, I didn't have that. My friend had Mario Kart DS. She would share her game with me and we would just race each other. And it was like the coolest thing because I'm like, yo, I'm playing Mario Kart from her game. And now they're bringing it back, but on the Switch. You can only share games from your Switch 2, but you can share it with an old Switch console and even a Switch Lite. You can do it up to 3 different consoles at a time. So 4 people can be playing off of the same copy of the game. And that is huge for families who want to buy a game one time and they don't want to have to buy it 4 different times because that gets expensive. GameShare also even supports online play with other Switch 2 consoles. Even if you're not in the same house, you're in different places. Through the internet, you can share your game and you can still play the game together. In the era that we live in today with game streaming, how it's getting more and more reliable, this can only mean good things. Then they started to dive into the actual console itself. This was getting me so excited. They go over the specs and they announced, a bigger screen with the same thickness, 7.9 inches. So it's almost basically an 8-inch display. They confirmed that the Switch's screen is 1080p up to 120 hertz refresh rate. I literally screamed out loud because I made a video of predictions of features that I thought were coming to the Switch 2. And one of those predictions that I made in the video was 1080p 120 hertz display. But while I was editing the video, I just thought it was so ridiculous. And I was like, you know what? I don't think that they'll actually do that. There's no way that they can fit in 120 hertz in the price point. So I cut it out and I was like, oh dude, I shouldn't have cut it out. I'll play the footage for you right now. Now it would be cool if you could get like 120 hertz on there, but I don't think Nintendo's gonna be at the price point of 450 or at the price point of 400 to 450. I don't think that they're gonna fit a 120 hertz display in there in that budget. 1080p 120 hertz is phenomenal. That is so awesome. They showed off how the Joy-Con 2s attach magnetically, which magnets are always cool. They showed off that the control sticks are bigger, the SL and SR buttons are a lot bigger, and then they got into something that blew my mind, which was rumored to come, but now it's confirmed, mouse control. So each controller can be used as a mouse. They showed off the new stand, which obviously we know that the old Switch stand was like memed all the time because of how flimsy and breakable it was, but we have a much more sturdier upgraded stand on the Switch 2. And they showed off the 2 USB-C ports, so they did confirm that you can actually charge your Switch with either the bottom or the top, so you can actually charge in tabletop mode. And then they talked about the storage. So the Switch originally came with 32 gigabytes of storage, which we know was not a lot of storage, but they increased the storage and made it 256 gigabytes. They announced that the dock has 4K support. And now this is like, dude, I'm gonna be able to play Metroid Prime 4 in 4K on my TV. Something that I actually missed and now I'm noticing on a rewatch is that they actually have a built-in fan on the dock to keep your Switch cool. And that's awesome, to keep your Switch cool. Then they talked about a game called Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which I got excited originally because I was like, hey, it's like a game that shows off features, kind of like PlayStation's Astrobot. And I was like, oh, cool, like a pack-in title, like Wii Sports or something, or Wii Play. But then they announced that it was actually a paid game. And I think this is a huge, huge missed opportunity because one of the reasons that, Astrobot's Playroom was such a big hit was because it was a pack-in title for the PlayStation. And I think that, not packing this game into the Switch 2 is a mistake, in my opinion. It's a bummer that you're gonna have to buy this game, and I think that means that a lot of people aren't gonna buy it. They announced a new Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller with a headphone jack, so it's kind of like our modern controllers where you can plug in a headset and you can use game chat and hear the game through your controller, I assume. They officially announced the launch date, which is June 5th. That is so soon, and I'm so excited. I can't wait. They go into detail about the 3 different game types that you can play on your Switch 2. There are games for the Nintendo Switch 2, which of course were built from the ground up and made to play exclusively on the Switch 2. Then there's compatible Nintendo Switch games, so games from Switch that can play on the Switch 2. Then the last game type are the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games. So this is games that they are going to unlock to allow you to run faster and look better and play smoother on your Switch 2 console. The only downside is that you actually have to purchase the upgrade pack. So there are upgraded versions that are actually hidden behind a paywall, which is kind of a bummer. I would have liked to see that it was just free. It was like, it would feel like the only thing holding back these games was the hardware of the Switch. and now, you know, you have to pay to actually upgrade your game, which I think is kind of silly because you're now paying for the game again. That's just a bummer. They showed that for games like Mario Party, maybe some other games that are going to be coming in the future, the upgrade pack is not just a visual overhaul, but it's actually, you know, expansion content, kind of like Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. It's going to be Mario Party Jamboree plus Mario Party Jamboree TV, with more games that are built for the Switch 2, mouse control games, microphone games. They go over the 2 Legend of Zelda Adventures, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, those editions, Kirby Forgotten Land Switch Edition, plus an expansion pack on that. The one that I'm most excited for, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond Switch 2 Edition. I cannot wait to dive into Metroid Prime 4 and to know that there is a better looking, better running version that I can play on the Switch 2. I feel like the trailers that we've been seeing have been for the Switch, and now they're showing the Switch 2 versions. It looks incredible. One thing I thought was so cool is that they're introducing mouse support for the Switch 2 edition. I can't stop smiling because that makes me so excited. I mean, playing Metroid Prime Remastered and being able to use the full dual stick controls was awesome, but now that you can play it with mouse support, you'll get finer control over your aiming. I'm so hyped for this game. I cannot wait to play Metroid Prime 4. There's 2 different visual modes in Metroid Prime. There's quality mode where you get 4K 60 FPS with HDR, and in handheld mode is 1080p 60 FPS. But if you want performance mode, you can play at 1080p 120 FPS, which, dude, playing a Metroid game at 120 FPS is gonna be insane. And on handheld mode, it's 720p, which I feel like I always would go for performance mode, even when I'm playing, you know, my PS5. You know, I'd always lock it into a higher refresh rate because I don't really care about the visuals so much as I care about, you know, higher frame rate. It's going to be so awesome. I'm going to be playing Metroid Prime 4 Beyond in 120 FPS mode at all times. This is where I have to eat my words a little bit, okay? There was a Pokemon Legends ZA trailer, and I have to admit, this got my excitement up a little bit. Maybe it was because I had been seeing all the different things that Switch 2 was doing. Everything in the direct was getting me hyped, and then I was just in a good mood when I watched this trailer. But the Pokemon Legends ZA trailer looked good. Like, visually looked good. And like I said, I think this is when I realized, okay, they've been showing us trailers of these games running on the original Switch hardware. Now they're showing us the Switch 2 editions of the games. It's running at a stable 60 FPS. The graphics look crisp. There's no stuttering, no lagging. I was like, okay, maybe this is how I'm gonna play it and I'm actually gonna enjoy it a little bit more. And so there may be a video on this channel later down the road where I have to completely eat my own words and say that I was wrong and that Legend ZA was fun. But we'll see. We'll see. I am not getting my hopes up. I don't want to, you know, overexcite myself and be disappointed like with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Then they went over a new game for the Nintendo Switch 2 called Dragon Drive or Drag X Drive. It looks so cool. It's like, you know, wheelchair basketball, and you use both your Joy-Con 2 controllers as mouse, and you have to like row your character like he's in a wheelchair. And because there's, you know, there's gyro in the controllers, it showed people like, you know, waving to the, hey, pass me the ball, like emoting, high-fiving. There was even like grinding on the rails, jumping, and then dunking. This game looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I could see myself, you know, getting into this game because I love basketball and it's a new way to play the Switch. It's a unique control layout that you can only get this type of experience on the Switch 2. And I think it's going to be a blast. And I think if this game is like, you know, 30, 40 bucks, it'll be worth it. Maybe not if it's 60. I think that's what killed ARMS. This announcement kind of blew me away because this is when we started to see a lot of third-party games being announced for the Switch 2, and they announced Elden Ring Tarnished Edition. I think it's starting to show the power that the Switch 2 is actually capable of. To be able to run a game as massive and as beautiful as Elden Ring on your Switch. Now I think that I really need to buy this game because I still have yet to play Elden Ring, and I think this is what's gonna, you know, tip the scales over for me, is I'm gonna have to buy Elden Ring on my Switch 2. A game that I've never heard of. I don't know if it's new, but it's Daemon Ex Machina, Titanic Scion. They announced, you know, a brand new title, Split Fiction, which is a co-op multiplayer game. They announced EA Sports games like, you know, the FC Club, which is the soccer series, and Madden coming to the Switch. That's cool. Hogwarts Legacy. This is kind of like Switch redemption because Hogwarts Legacy infamously ran like hot garbage on the original Switch. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. That looked pretty sweet. Hitman World of Assassination. They actually announced Project 007, a new James Bond game, is going to be coming to the Switch. Bravely Default, Flying Fairy HD Remaster. Yakuza 0, Director's Cut. They announced Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which is another Warriors style game, but it's the story that's leading into Tears of the Kingdom. Then Nintendo announced that another console is coming to Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. The Nintendo GameCube is coming to the Nintendo Switch. I was just smiling ear to ear because I wanted so badly to have Nintendo GameCube emulation because that's one of the consoles of my childhood that, you know, I was just so young at that age that I only really have bits and pieces of memories playing the GameCube. But now I get to experience GameCube games as an adult, and it's going to be so much fun. They announced a Nintendo GameCube controller that is specifically for the Switch 2, and it's an exact replica of the GameCube controller, but it's wireless, and it includes all of the different features that a Pro controller would have, which is phenomenal. Enter the Gungeon 2 caught my attention because I'm actually a fan of the original Enter the Gungeon. I was like, wow, this is a Nintendo Switch Direct, and developers are choosing to announce their games here. It's not at, you know, not at an E3 or not at a games conference. It's not for the Xbox, not for the PlayStation. They chose the Switch to announce their games. Third-party support was expansive for the original Switch, but it wasn't until later on. Early on, you know, everyone was really wary about how the Switch was going to do, so third-party support was pretty sparse. But now we can see out the gate, there's going to be a lot of third-party games coming to the Switch. And then, I mean, Cyberpunk 2077 running on the Switch 2, that to me is mind-boggling. Because if you can get the Switch 2 to actually run Cyberpunk stably, I will be impressed. Because even on my Steam Deck, Cyberpunk 2077 chugs on that thing. And the Steam Deck is a pretty powerful little console. So if you can get Cyberpunk 2077 running at a stable, you know, 60 FPS on the Switch 2, I'll be blown away. Then they just did a sizzle reel of games. I mean, it was just like boom, 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 like a blink and you miss it type of thing. Officially, Hollow Knight Silk Song announced, supposedly coming out 2025. So I know people that have been waiting for Silk Song, it's been memed to death at this point. They officially announced it here on the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, which is cool. There's a game called Fast Fusion, which is cool. It reminds me of, there was this game that I had on the PS Vita. I'll have to put it in the edit, but it was like a racing game, really high speed, and being able to play multiplayer co-op. Couch co-op is really cool because, you know, in the year of 2025, couch co-op is like a lost art. Nintendo is really the only company keeping that couch co-op feel alive. Finishing out, we got the Dusk Bloods, which is another FromSoft title, which I thought it was Bloodborne because that's how ignorant I am to the FromSoft titles. But it's a brand new title that is being announced on the Switch 2 Direct, which is still, to me, it's insane. Like that companies are choosing to announce their games on, you know, a Nintendo Direct. And then they announced the sequel to Kirby Air Riders for the Switch 2. It looks so fun. It's just another racing title, but with Kirby. The last thing that Nintendo covered was Donkey Kong Bonanza. This game looks insanely fun. That Donkey Kong is getting the Super Mario Odyssey treatment. So it's basically Donkey Kong, Super Mario Odyssey. It looks so cool. It looks a lot more freeing. You can dig in the ground. There's puzzles where you can rip things out of the ground and you can throw them at stuff. You can customize Donkey Kong. It just looks great. I'm super excited for everything that this game could be. So that's everything that I found interesting in the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. I'm so excited for the Switch 2. Everything that we've seen announced, I'm excited to just be in a new era of Nintendo. Let me know in the comments below if you're planning to get this as soon as possible. I'm sure many of you are. If you haven't noticed, I'm a small channel and I don't really ever bring this up, but you know, I want to see this channel grow. I want to see this channel become something that I could never, you know, imagine it becoming. So if you want to join me on the journey and you want to support a small creator, hit that subscribe button. Engage with people, conversation in the comments. If you watched all the way up to this point, thank you so much. Obviously, you know, it means a lot to me if you're watching up to this point. I don't know how to outro this video. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you in the next one.